The sweet scent of roses greeted Tessa Reynolds as she pushed open the door to her family's flower shop, Petal Paradise. Sunlight streamed through the large front windows, casting a warm glow on the colorful blooms that lined the walls. It was only Tuesday morning, but something told her today would be different from the quiet weekday routine she had grown accustomed to. Perhaps it was the way the bell above the door chimed with unusual enthusiasm, or how the roses seemed to stand a little taller in their vases. But Tessa felt a flutter of anticipation as she tied her apron around her waist. The bell chimed again, and Tessa looked up from the arrangement she was working on. A tall man with dark hair and broad shoulders stood hesitantly in the doorway, his striking blue eyes scanning the shop with a mixture of curiosity and uncertainty. He was impeccably dressed in a tailored suit that seemed slightly too formal for a simple flower shop visit, but Tessa was immediately struck by how out of place yet intriguing he appeared. "Good morning," she called, setting down her scissors. "Welcome to Petal Paradise." "Can I help you find something?" The man's eyes landed on her, and for a brief moment he looked startled, as if he hadn't expected to find anyone in a flower shop. "Yes, actually," he said, his voice deep and pleasant. "I need flowers for my mother. It's her birthday tomorrow, and I'm completely clueless when it comes to these things." Tessa smiled warmly. There was something endearing about a grown man admitting his lack of knowledge about flowers, especially one who looked as confident in every other aspect as this one did. "You've come to the right place," she assured him. "I'm Tessa. What's your mom's favorite flower?" "Victor Caldwell," he replied automatically, then shook his head with a self-deprecating laugh. "Sorry, I'm Victor. My mom's name is Millionaire, and I have absolutely no idea what her favorite flower is. I'm a terrible son, aren't I?" Tessa laughed, the sound light and genuine. "Not at all. Most sons wouldn't even think about getting their mother's flowers. The fact that you're here already puts you ahead of the curve." She moved out from behind the counter, gesturing for him to follow her through the shop. "Tell me a bit about your mom. What's she like? What colors does she wear most often?" Victor seemed relieved to have some direction. "She's elegant, traditional in some ways, but not stuffy. She wears a lot of blue and purple, I think. She's always been supportive, even when I decided to take risks that most parents would have discouraged." As they walked between the displays, Tessa noticed Victor observing everything with keen interest, as if cataloging each flower and making mental notes. There was something methodical about the way he moved, something that spoke of a mind that was used to processing information quickly and efficiently. "What kind of risks?" Tessa asked, selecting a few stems of lavender and holding them up for his consideration. Victor's eyes met hers over the flowers. "I started my own business when everyone told me it would fail. It was in commercial real estate development when the market was unstable. My father wanted me to join his law firm, but Mom supported my decision to go my own way. And did it." Tessa picked up some elegant purple irises, adding them to the lavender. "Fail, I mean." A small smile played at the corners of Victor's mouth. "No, it didn't." There was something in the quiet confidence of his response that made Tessa look at him more closely. Success suited him, she decided. It wasn't arrogance she saw in his bearing, but the self-assurance of someone who knew his own worth. "I think your mother would love these," Tessa said, selecting some white roses to complement the purple blooms. The irises represent wisdom and faith, lavender for grace and elegance, and white roses for purity and reverence. It's a thoughtful combination for a mother who believed in her son. Victor watched as Tessa's hands moved deftly among the flowers, her fingers gentle but sure as she arranged them into a bouquet. "You really love what you do, don't you?" he asked. Tessa nodded without looking up. "This shop has been in my family for 3 generations. My grandmother started it, then my mother took over, and now it's mine. Flowers have been part of my life for as long as I can remember." She paused, considering the arrangement. "Do you love what you do?" "I do," Victor replied, his gaze fixed on her face rather than the flowers. "It's challenging and sometimes stressful, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. There's something incredibly satisfying about building something from nothing and watching it grow." "That sounds a lot like what I do." Tessa said with a smile, reaching for some decorative filler. Just on a different scale, Victor laughed, and Tessa was struck by how it transformed his face, making him look younger and more approachable. I suppose you're right. As Tessa finished the arrangement, Victor's phone buzzed insistently in his pocket. He glanced at it with a frown. I'm sorry, I need to take this. He stepped away, speaking in low, authoritative tones. While he was occupied, Tessa took the opportunity to study him more carefully. His suit was clearly expensive, his watch probably cost more than a month's rent on her apartment, and there was an air of authority about him that suggested he was used to being in charge. Yet there was also a genuineness to him that she found appealing. Victor returned, tucking his phone away with an apologetic smile. Sorry about that, business never stops, it seems. No problem, Tessa assured him, handing him the completed bouquet. What do you think? Victor looked genuinely impressed as he examined the arrangement. It's perfect. She'll love it. How much do I owe you? Tessa quoted the price, and Victor handed her his credit card without even blinking at the amount. As she processed the payment, she noticed the name on the card. Victor Caldwell, CEO, Caldwell Development Group. You know, Victor said as he took back his card, I might need your expertise again. Would it be all right if I came back sometime? Tessa felt a warmth spread through her chest at the prospect. Of course, we're open every day except Mondays. Perfect, Victor said, taking the bouquet. Their fingers brushed in the exchange, and Tessa felt an unexpected jolt of electricity at the contact. Thank you for your help, Tessa. You're welcome, Victor. I hope your mother enjoys her birthday. As the bell chimed with his departure, Tessa found herself watching him through the window as he carefully placed the bouquet in the passenger seat of a sleek black car that probably cost more than she would make in 5 years. She wondered if she would actually see him again or if he was just being polite. Either way, she couldn't deny that she hoped he would return. The next day, just as Tessa was preparing to close the shop, the bell above the door chimed. She looked up to see Victor striding in, this time in slightly more casual attire, dark jeans and a light blue button-down shirt that brought out the color of his eyes. Victor, she said, unable to keep the surprise from her voice. I didn't expect to see you so soon. He smiled, that same transformative smile that had caught her attention yesterday. I wanted to let you know that the flowers were a huge hit. My mother absolutely loved them. She said they were the most beautiful arrangement she'd ever received, and she's gotten a lot of flowers in her time. Tessa felt a flush of pride. I'm so glad she liked them. More than liked, Victor assured her. In fact, she was so impressed that she's insisting I order arrangements from you for an event we're hosting next month. It's a charity gala for the Children's Hospital Foundation that my company supports. We're expecting about 200 guests. Tessa's eyes widened. An order that size would be a significant boost to the shop's income. That sounds like something we could definitely handle. Would you like to sit down and discuss the details? Victor nodded, and Tessa led him to a small seating area near the back of the shop where she sometimes met with wedding clients. As they settled into the chairs, she couldn't help but notice how his presence seemed to fill the space, not in an imposing way, but with a kind of natural gravitation. Before we get started on the gala details, Victor said, leaning forward slightly, I was wondering if you might be free for dinner tomorrow night, to discuss the arrangements, of course. Tessa felt her heart skip a beat. Was he asking her out, or was this strictly business? The expression on his face suggested it might be a bit of both. I'd like that, she replied, trying to keep her voice casual. As long as we're clear that this is a business dinner. Victor's smile turned slightly teasing. Of course, strictly professional. There was something in his tone that made Tessa doubt the strictly professional part, but she found she didn't mind at all. Great, Victor said, standing. I'll pick you up here at 7 if that works for you. Tessa nodded, trying to ignore the flutter of anticipation in her stomach. 7 is perfect. After Victor left, Tessa found herself moving through the rest of her closing tasks in a daze. She had just agreed to have dinner with a man she barely knew, a man who was clearly wealthy and successful, a man who made her pulse quicken with just a smile. It had been so long since she'd felt this kind of immediate connection with someone. The following evening, Tessa spent more time than usual choosing her outfit, finally settling on a simple emerald green dress that brought out the green in her hazel eyes. When Victor arrived, precisely at 7, she was locking up the shop. "You look beautiful," he said, his eyes appreciative but respectful as they took in her appearance. "Thank you," she replied, feeling suddenly shy. "You clean up pretty well yourself." Victor was dressed in a charcoal suit that fit him perfectly, making him look every inch the successful businessman he was. He offered her his arm, and she took it, feeling a little thrill at the contact. "I hope you like Italian food," he said as he led her to his car. "There's a little place downtown that I think you'll enjoy." The restaurant was small and intimate, with candlelit tables and soft music playing in the background. It wasn't ostentatiously expensive, but Tessa could tell from the attentive service and the quality of the food that it wasn't an ordinary place either. As they settled in with glasses of wine, Victor smiled at her across the table. "So, Tessa Reynolds of Petal Paradise, tell me more about yourself." "There's not much to tell," she said with a small shrug. "I grew up helping in the flower shop. I went to college for business, but I always knew I'd come back and take over the family business. It's not an exciting life, but it's mine, and I love it." "Don't sell yourself short," Victor said, his eyes intent on her face. "Running a successful small business in today's economy is no small achievement, and from what I can tell, you've got a real talent for what you do." The sincerity in his voice touched Tessa. "Thank you, that means a lot." She took a sip of her wine. "Now your turn. Tell me more about Victor Caldwell, CEO of Caldwell Development Group. How did you get started in commercial real estate?" Victor leaned back in his chair, swirling his wine thoughtfully. "I always had an interest in architecture and design, even as a kid. I used to sketch buildings and imagine the people who would live or work in them. After college, I worked for a few development companies to learn the ropes, and then I decided to strike out on my own about 10 years ago." "And now," Tessa prompted. A flash of something pride, perhaps, but tempered with modesty crossed Victor's face. "Now we're one of the leading commercial development firms in the region. We specialize in sustainable, mixed-use projects, the kind that revitalize neighborhoods rather than just gentrifying them. It's important to me that our developments contribute positively to the communities they're in." Tessa was impressed. It wasn't just the success he'd achieved, but the principles behind it that caught her attention. "That's really admirable. It's rare to find businesses that prioritize community impact alongside profit." "I could say the same about your shop," Victor pointed out. "You could have modernized, expanded into a chain, but you've kept it the same neighborhood business your grandmother started." There's value in that kind of consistency and connection. Their conversation flowed easily throughout dinner, moving from their businesses to favorite books, films, childhood memories, and dreams for the future. Tessa was surprised by how comfortable she felt with Victor, how natural it seemed to share parts of herself she usually kept private. As they finished their dessert, a shared tiramisu that was so good Tessa nearly closed her eyes in pleasure with each bite, Victor brought the conversation back to the reason for their dinner. "So, about the gala," he said, pulling out his phone to show her some photos of the venue. "It's at the Grand Hotel downtown. The theme is Garden of Hope, and we'd need arrangements for about 20 tables, plus some larger displays for the entrance and stage area." Tessa leaned closer to look at the photos, suddenly very aware of Victor's proximity, of the subtle scent of his cologne. "It's a beautiful space," she said, trying to focus on the professional aspects of the discussion. "I'm thinking whites and soft greens with touches of blue and purple to echo your mother's bouquet, since she's the one who recommended us." Victor nodded, his eyes on her face rather than the phone screen. "That sounds perfect. I trust your judgment completely." The way he said it made Tessa look up, meeting his gaze. There was something in his eyes, a warmth that went beyond professional appreciation that made her breath catch. "Victor," she began, not entirely sure what she was going to say. "I know we said this was a business dinner," he interrupted gently, "but I have to be honest with you, Tessa. I'm interested in more than just your floral designs. I'd like to see you again in a definitely not business capacity." The directness of his statement was refreshing. No games, no ambiguity, just a straightforward expression of interest that Tessa found she very much wanted to reciprocate. "I'd like that too," she admitted, a smile spreading across her face. Victor's answering smile was bright with genuine pleasure. "Good, that's good." After dinner, Victor drove Tessa back to her apartment, insisting on walking her to her door. Standing in the soft glow of the hallway light, Tessa felt a mixture of nervousness and anticipation. "Thank you for dinner," she said, looking up at him. "And for the opportunity with the gala. It's going to be a great project for the shop." "Thank you for saying yes," Victor replied, his voice low, "to both the gala and to seeing me again." He leaned down slowly, giving her plenty of time to step back if she wanted to. But Tessa didn't want to step back. Instead, she tilted her face up to meet his, and their lips came together in a gentle, exploratory kiss that nevertheless sent warmth spreading through her entire body. When they parted, Victor's eyes were dark with promise. "Good night, Tessa." "Good night, Victor," she whispered, already looking forward to seeing him again. Over the next few weeks, as Tessa worked on preparations for the gala, she and Victor fell into a rhythm of dating that felt both exciting and surprisingly comfortable. He would stop by the shop in the afternoons, sometimes just to say hello, other times to take her to lunch. On weekends, they explored the city together, visiting art galleries, trying new restaurants, or simply walking in the park. Tessa learned that despite his wealth and success, Victor was unpretentious and genuinely interested in her world. He asked thoughtful questions about her work, remembered details about her family and friends, and never made her feel like her life or career was less significant than his. For his part, Victor seemed to find in Tessa a refreshing authenticity. "Most of the women I've dated in the past were more interested in what I could provide than in who I am," he confessed one evening as they sat on her small balcony, sharing a bottle of wine. "You're different. You see me, not just my bank account." Tessa reached for his hand, intertwining their fingers. "Well, to be fair, I didn't know about your bank account when we first met. You were just a clueless son looking for flowers for his mom." Victor laughed, squeezing her hand, "and thank goodness for that. It gave me the chance to make a genuine first impression." As the night of the gala approached, Tessa found herself working long hours to ensure every arrangement was perfect. The order was the largest her shop had ever handled, and while she had hired temporary help, she still insisted on overseeing every detail personally. The day before the event, Victor stopped by the shop to find Tessa surrounded by flowers, her hair pulled back in a messy bun, a smudge of green on her cheek from the stems she'd been handling. Despite her obvious fatigue, she was radiant with purpose and creativity. "How's it going?" he asked, leaning against the workbench where she was assembling a large centerpiece. "Good," she said, not looking up from her work. "Busy but good, we're on schedule." Victor watched her for a moment, admiring the deftness of her hands, the concentration in her eyes. "You know," he said casually, "I could hire a team to help you finish up. It would be no problem." Tessa shook her head, finally glancing up at him with a smile. "That's sweet, but unnecessary. This is what I do, Victor. I don't need to be rescued from my work. I love it." Victor's expression softened. "Of course you do. I didn't mean to imply otherwise." He hesitated, then added, "I just worry about you pushing yourself too hard." "Says the man who regularly works 16-hour days," Tessa teased, but her tone was affectionate. "I appreciate the concern, but I promise I'm fine. This kind of creative rush is actually energizing for me." Victor nodded, accepting her assurance. "Well, in that case, can I at least bring you dinner later? You have to eat." "That," Tessa said with a grin, "I will gladly accept." The night of the gala arrived, and Tessa oversaw the delivery and setup of all the floral arrangements at the Grand Hotel. The venue was transformed into an elegant garden oasis, with white and green blooms accented by touches of blue and purple, just as she had envisioned. The effect was sophisticated yet warm, perfectly complementing the charitable nature of the event. Victor had insisted that Tessa attend the gala as his guest once her work was done, and she had finally relented, rushing home to change into a floor-length navy blue gown that she had splurged on for the occasion. By the time she returned to the hotel, The event was in full swing. As Tessa entered the ballroom, she couldn't help but feel a surge of pride at seeing her creations adorning the space, drawing admiring comments from the elegantly dressed guests. She scanned the room, looking for Victor, and found him deep in conversation with an older couple near one of the larger arrangements. When Victor spotted her, his face lit up with a smile that made her heart race. He excused himself from his conversation and made his way to her side. "You look absolutely stunning," he said, taking her hand and lifting it to his lips for a kiss. "And the flowers are magnificent. Everyone is raving about them." Tessa felt a blush creep up her cheeks at his praise and the admiring look in his eyes. "Thank you. It all came together perfectly." "Come," Victor said, offering her his arm. "Let me introduce you to some people who have been especially impressed by your work." As Victor guided her through the crowd, Tessa couldn't help but notice the deference with which people treated him. It was clear that he was highly respected, even among this gathering of wealthy and influential individuals. She also noticed the curious glances directed her way, the subtle evaluations that suggested people were wondering exactly who she was to Victor Caldwell. "Victor, darling," a sleek woman in her 50s intercepted them, her eyes sharp with interest as they landed on Tessa. "Aren't you going to introduce me to your lovely companion?" Victor's smile was polite but had a certain guardedness that Tessa hadn't seen before. "Of course." "Tessa Reynolds, this is Deanne Harrington, a longtime business associate. Deanne, Tessa is the talented florist behind all of tonight's arrangements, and also," he added, his voice softening as he looked at Tessa, "someone very special to me." Deanne's perfectly sculpted eyebrows rose slightly at this declaration. "How lovely," she said, her tone suggesting she found it anything but, "and how did you two meet?" Before Tessa could answer, another voice joined the conversation, warm, genuinely interested, and somehow familiar even though Tessa had never heard it before. "Yes, I'd love to hear that story too." Tessa turned to see an elegant woman with silver-streaked dark hair and Victor's blue eyes. Millionaire Caldwell was immediately recognizable from the features she had passed on to her son. "Mom," Victor said with obvious affection, leaning down to kiss her cheek. "I was looking for you earlier. I want you to meet Tessa Reynolds. Tessa, this is my mother, Millionaire. The florist who created my birthday arrangement," Millionaire said warmly, taking Tessa's hands in her own. "I've been wanting to meet you, my dear. That bouquet was exquisite. It told a story, which is what truly great floral design should do." Tessa felt herself relaxing in the face of Millionaire's genuine warmth. "Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to meet you." "Now," Millionaire said, gently drawing Tessa away from Deanne's scrutiny, "tell me how you and my son met. He's been quite tight-lipped about it, which only makes me more curious." Victor chuckled, his hand finding the small of Tessa's back in a supportive gesture. "It's not that exciting a story, Mom. He came into my shop looking for flowers for your birthday," Tessa explained, smiling at the memory. "He had no idea what to get, so I helped him choose an arrangement based on what he told me about you. And he was so impressed with your talent that he asked you out," Millionaire guessed. Victor shook his head, his expression slightly sheepish. "Not exactly. I was so taken with her that I came back the next day with a business proposal for the gala, which was really just an excuse to see her again." Tessa looked at him in surprise. "Wait, the gala order was just an excuse, not the order itself," Victor clarified quickly. "We really did need a florist and your work is exceptional, but I could have sent an event planner to handle it. I wanted an excuse to come back myself." Millionaire laughed delightedly. "Oh, that's absolutely charming. Victor has always been strategic in business, but I've never seen him apply those skills to his personal life before." Tessa found herself laughing too, not at all upset by the revelation. "So you're saying I was a business acquisition?" Victor's eyes were warm with affection as they met hers. "More like the best investment I've ever made." The evening continued, with Tessa alternating between admiring her work, meeting Victor's friends and associates, and enjoying the gala itself. She was pleasantly surprised to find that Millionaire sought her out several times, seemingly genuinely interested in getting to know her. "You know," Millionaire said during one such conversation, I haven't seen Victor this happy in a very long time. He's always been driven and successful, but there's a lightness to him now that's been missing. Tessa felt a warmth spread through her chest at these words. He makes me happy too, she admitted. Even though our worlds are so different, Alina patted her hand. Different worlds can complement each other beautifully, just like different flowers in an arrangement. It's the contrast that creates the harmony. As the gala wound down, Victor found Tessa near one of the large display arrangements, admiring how the lights caught the delicate white blooms. "Having fun?" he asked, slipping an arm around her waist. Tessa leaned into him, comfortable with the public display of affection. "I am. Your mother is wonderful, by the way. She likes you too," Victor said. "She told me not to mess this up." Tessa laughed. Solid advice. Victor turned to face her, his expression suddenly serious. "I don't intend to mess it up, Tessa. These past few weeks with you have been, well, they've shown me what I've been missing. I've been so focused on building my business that I forgot to build a life." Tessa reached up to touch his face, moved by the vulnerability in his admission. "I'm glad I could help with that part." Victor captured her hand, pressing a kiss to her palm. "There's something I need to tell you, though, something I probably should have mentioned earlier." Tessa felt a flicker of unease. "What is it?" "It's about my company," Victor said, his eyes steady on hers. "Caldwell Development Group is, well, it's larger than I might have implied. We're not just a regional leader, we're one of the largest commercial developers on the East Coast. The company is valued at over $1 billion. Tessa blinked, trying to process this information. "You're a billionaire?" Victor winced slightly. "Technically, my net worth is just under $1 billion, so I'm a millionaire many times over, but not quite a billionaire. I didn't tell you earlier because, well, it changes how people see me, how they interact with me, and I wanted you to know me, Victor the person, not Victor the wealthy CEO." Tessa was quiet for a moment, absorbing this revelation. It explained so much the deference people showed him, the luxurious but understated way he lived, the ease with which he handled expenses that would have been significant for most people. "Are you angry?" Victor asked, a hint of anxiety in his voice. Tessa shook her head slowly. "No, not angry. A bit surprised, maybe, although I knew you were successful. But Victor, you need to understand something." She met his gaze directly. "Your bank account doesn't change how I feel about you. I fell for the man who came into my shop looking for flowers for his mom, who listens when I talk about my day, who brings me coffee just the way I like it without being asked. That's who you are to me." The tension visibly left Victor's shoulders. "That's all I want to be," he said softly. "Just the man who loves you." The words hung in the air between them, the first time either of them had spoken of love. Tessa felt her heart swell with emotion. "You love me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Victor nodded, his eyes never leaving hers. "I do. I love you, Tessa Reynolds. Your creativity, your dedication, your kindness, your strength, everything about you. I know it's only been a few weeks, but sometimes you just know." Tessa smiled, tears of joy pricking at the corners of her eyes. "I love you too, Victor. And you're right, sometimes you just know." He pulled her close then, capturing her lips in a kiss that was both tender and passionate, uncaring of the few remaining gala guests who might be watching. When they finally parted, both a little breathless, Victor rested his forehead against hers. "So," he said, a teasing note entering his voice, "now that you know I'm absurdly wealthy, does that mean I can finally buy out your entire shop's inventory of flowers to send to you? Or would that still be too much?" Tessa laughed, shaking her head in amusement. "Is that what you've wanted to do all along?" Victor grinned, not at all apologetic. "Since about 5 minutes after I met you, I had this image of your face when you realized all those bouquets were for you." "That would have been quite a gesture," Tessa admitted. "But you know what? I think I prefer the way things unfolded. Getting to know you, falling in love with the man, not the millionaire, it's a better story." "A better beginning," Victor corrected, his eyes bright with promise. "Our story is just getting started." 6 months later, Tessa stood in her shop, arranging white roses and delicate baby's breath for a special order. The bell above the door chimed, and she looked up to see Victor walking in, his face alight with the smile that was reserved just for her. "Ready for dinner?" he asked, leaning across the counter to kiss her hello. Almost, she replied, placing the last stem in the arrangement, just finishing up this one's special order. Victor looked at the elegant arrangement with appreciation. It's beautiful. Who's the lucky recipient? Tessa smiled mysteriously. You'll see. Later, as they sat at their favorite table in the Italian restaurant where they'd had their first date, Tessa wasn't surprised when the waiter appeared with the very arrangement she had been working on earlier. What did surprise her was when Victor rose from his chair, taking the flowers from the waiter and presenting them to her himself. "What's this?" she asked, confused. "I made these." "How did you?" "I called your assistant," Victor explained, his eyes twinkling with mischief. "Asked her to make sure you created an arrangement that would be delivered here tonight. I wanted you to receive flowers that you made yourself, because no one else could create something as perfect as what you do." Before Tessa could respond, Victor was sinking to one knee beside the table, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. Around them, the restaurant had gone quiet, other diners watching the scene unfold. "Tessa Reynolds," Victor said, his voice steady despite the emotion evident in his eyes. "You walked into my life when I was looking for flowers for my mother, and you've brought color and beauty to my world every day since. You've taught me that true wealth isn't measured in dollars but in moments of genuine connection and joy. I love you more than I ever thought possible, and I want to spend the rest of my life creating a garden of memories with you." He opened the box, revealing a stunning diamond ring. "Will you marry me?" Tessa felt tears of happiness streaming down her face as she nodded. "Yes," she managed to say through the emotion clogging her throat. "Yes, I will marry you, Victor." As he slipped the ring onto her finger and the restaurant erupted in applause, Tessa marveled at how a simple encounter in her flower shop had blossomed into the love of a lifetime. She had helped him pick out flowers for his mother, unaware he was a millionaire who wanted to buy her bouquets. Instead, he had given her something far more precious, his heart, freely and completely. And she had given him hers in return, creating an arrangement more beautiful and lasting than any flowers could ever be.